Well, hello and welcome to the very first episode of From the Stash Pile. I'm Caroline and I'm a third member of another podcast group called the Fiber Friends. And I'm much more used to podcasting with more people than just me. So this feels really strange and a little, I don't know, I feel nervous and a little embarrassed, and it was really hard to start. So I decided to just push the button and see where it takes me. So my name is Caroline, and you can find me on Instagram as Carrie Fluter, and on Ravelry as well if you're a knitter, also as Carrie Fluter. And my blog, offthegridneedlearts.com. And I'll have all of the information on some show notes, which I'll actually put on the blog. Stitchers don't have a group like Ravelry that I'm aware of. Ravelry is such an enormous social network for knitters, and a great place to meet other people who are in your area or people who have similar interests. But stitchers don't have quite the same thing. So wouldn't that be great? That would be neat. Someone should start a Ravelry for stitchers. And if it already exists, somebody fill me in. So, as I said, I'm a third member of the podcast, The Fiber Friends, and we're a silly group of girls who just like to get together and have a laugh and talk about our knitting. And when we had started that podcast, I had really hoped to have part of our discussion be also about stitching, because it's really a huge part of my life. I love stitching, and I have the stash to back it up. So I was hoping that a big part of my part of that discussion on that podcast would be about my stitching. And I found like it was just sort of being not overshadowed, but I wasn't able to talk about it as much as I wanted, because our podcasts already run almost 2 hours in length, because the three of us get chatting and laughing, and before you know it, 2 hours is up, and there's just so much to talk about and to cover. So I was hoping to separate out my love of stitching into a separate little podcast. So here we go, From the Stash Pile, episode 1. So I thought I would try to follow a similar format to what we do on the Fiber Friends, and start with finished objects at the beginning. So I'm going to call it show and tell. There's a fly in here, so hopefully it won't distract too much. Anyways, show and tell. So I thought I would start with something that I stitched a number of years ago that I have up here with me at the cottage. This is where I'm recording today. I'm in beautiful Georgian Bay, which is in Ontario, in Canada. And I am out in the islands, and we are off the grid. We have solar power, we have propane, we have a generator. And if you're watching this, it's because my trusty husband has managed to take this recording home and upload it where we have unlimited internet, which is not the case here. We have to be very careful with our data usage. So anyways, a number of years ago, my husband built this cottage. He cleared the land, he designed the property, he built it himself with our handyman came and helped, and we had friends lend a hand, and it was quite the undertaking. So when it was built, I decided to commemorate the occasion, and so I stitched a Little House Needleworks design, and you can see it there under the tall pines. I believe this is still, I don't think this is out of print. You can see I finished it back in 2010, and that's the year that John finished building the cottage, and we named our place Seagull Point. I changed the color of the cabin to match our cabin, which is green. I think the original was white, I'm not sure. And of course I changed the lettering in here. I don't remember what the original said, and I added these little seagulls in the side there. So I thought they were cute. So that lives here. My first show and tell. There you go. Okay. So moving on to works in progress. I have a lot. So I hope you're comfortable and I hope you have a hot drink and, you know, can sit and enjoy watching the parade of whips pass you by. So I am working on a number of things at the moment. I am not a monogamous stitcher. I'm not a monogamous crafter. It is a bit of a problem, a good problem. I like it. I sew, I quilt, I stitch, I knit, I English paper piece, which is the same. I think that falls under quilting. Tamari balls. That's a Japanese embroidery. If it is crafty, I'm all over it. Love it all. So that is to say, I have an enormous back catalog of projects that really need to be finished up. And so I'm also hoping that this podcast is going to help me work through my pile a little bit. We'll see. Okay, so to start off the show here, I have a Prairie schooler. A bird. Prairie schooler. This is a red-winged blackbird. And this was a pattern that was recently re-released, I think by Hoffman. Pretty sure. This is the Birds and Berries. It was originally published in 1994. And it's booklet number 44. You can see that right there. There's the red-winged blackbird that I'm stitching right now. Her patterns, oh, I tell you, aren't they gorgeous? These birds, they're just beautiful. So I am going to stitch them all individually. In the past, I've done things in groupings on one piece of fabric, but I think I'm going to do these individually. I love them. But I do have a little complaint about the re-release of this pattern. When Hoffman reproduced this, they changed the quality of the paper that it was printed on. Prairie Schooler's original patterns were published on a thick cardstock, and the patterns were very easy to see and lovely to stitch from. But the reprints are done on very, very thin paper. And the patterns themselves are really hard to read. They're really, 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 really difficult to see, especially for aging eyes that already are starting to struggle. So what I did, anyways, maybe this will help someone. Who knows? If we all complained, maybe they'd go back and maybe fix it a little bit. I photocopied it 200%, and it became a lot easier to see the chart and the pattern. Now, my colors, I am using the DMC colors that are called for. I did not make any substitutions in this. So everything that's there is as it was charted. So, my red-winged blackbird. And I'm using an 8-inch Q-snap, simple, and it's a linen. I'll be upfront, I'm a terrible, terrible note taker when it comes to keeping track of the different fabrics I have used on my works in progress. I have not kept very good track of what I'm stitching them on. I tend to know what it's for, what I bought it for, and then I lose track of the paper that had the information from the shop that tells me what it was all about. Normally my preference tends to be 32 count, 36 count linen, sometimes even weave, which I also really like. I don't often stitch on less than 32 count, sometimes 28 count for a particular project if it calls to me. But normally it's 32 count and 36. I'm pretty sure this is a 32 count. I think it looks like flax, maybe flax linen. I'm not sure. Anyway, so there you go. Prairie Schooler. Love it. Okay, next, keeping with the bird theme, I have one of my favorites. This is a Blackbird design think this was a mystery sampler a number of years ago. Loose feathers. This is the one I'm stitching at the moment. Autumn. Loose feathers. This is part 2 of 3. These were seasons. Now there was spring, autumn, and winter. I don't know what happened to summer. Maybe spring and summer are considered one. I don't know. But for some reason there were only 3 and not 4. So this is what I have so far. Isn't it beautiful? I love it. I just love it. So as you can see, I am wrapping up August. I'm going to cover up my face there. I'm finishing up autumn. And before I know it, that'll be done. Now I've kept this, I do tend to prefer to work on scroll rods. I know I have some Q snaps, but a lot of my projects are on scroll rods because I tend to choose large scale projects. So the ones that I tend to use are Kay's Creations and Hearthside Craftworks is the other one. I have a floor frame at home and a lap frame that I use here, and I just keep the scroll rods on. And all of my smaller projects are on Q snaps. So that's autumn. Now, I posted a picture of this on Instagram this morning, and I got a really good question from a friend on Instagram who asked me whether I always stitched from the pattern and I used the threads and the colors that were called for, or if I ever changed things up and made it more my own. And I thought that was a really great question. And in fact, I do often change some things. I like to follow the pattern for the most part, but if I can substitute, and I like the substitution, I will. I've substituted different fabrics lots of times, different colors, if I had something in my stash that I thought would work. So I thought I would show you because it just so happened that it was about this picture that she had asked. These were my substitutions for this one. And as you can see, this was a biggie. Now, I think, in fact, I know my friend who owns the local needlework shop in my town, Thread and I, Kathy, I know that she helped me do these conversions because at the time she was selling silk threads by Vicki Clayton, hand-dyed fibers, silk threads, and they were wonderful, wonderful silks. And in fact, she doesn't make them anymore, which is really a shame because they were a good price point and it was a really beautiful quality silk. So at the time, we changed out these crescent colors and gentle arts for silk threads. And so these were my HDF substitutions. And so I just wrote them right in the pattern. Unfortunately, at the time, I bought enough supplies to do the whole 3 series. But of course, because there's nothing that's, if I run out of something, it's not going to be difficult to substitute a slightly different color. So yeah, there you go. That's autumn. Beautiful. Love it. And hopefully the next time I podcast, this will be done. And I'll be looking forward to starting winter, hopefully. I hope to podcast every week, maybe every week and a half. Who knows? I've got lots to say. If you watch the Fiber Friends, you know I talk all the time. The other girls have to, try to talk over top of me once in a while because otherwise I just get away with things and they tend to pull me back into focus. So I'm really going to have to try hard and stay on topic here and not, go off on tangents all over the place. So, moving on. The next project that I have is almost done, and it's just a little guy. This is a Lizzie Kate Coffee Time series. That's the picture, the front of the pattern, and I love them all. And I'm going to stitch them all, but I started with this one. But first, coffee. And I am actually going to turn it into a bag. I'm probably going to make it into a similar style bucket bag, but maybe a bit longer. We'll see. Who knows? So here's what I have so far. Ta-da! As you can see, I'm almost done. It's a very small little design compared to the gargantuous things I normally stitch. When I first stitched this though, I thought, oh dear, these really don't look like beans to me. Do they to you? When it's all done and it's turned into a bag, I don't think they'll stick out at me as much as they do right now. But they look like little droppings of something yucky. Anyways, so almost done. Lizzie Kate. The next one I'm going to do, probably this one. We'll see. So there you go. Okay, moving on. Next, we have ink circles. This one I love. Love, 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 love. And this is probably one of my oldest works in progress. And I am desperately trying to finish it up because a fellow podcaster and a good friend, Faye, Crochet Circle Podcast, is hosting she's hosting the Festival of Finishing at the moment. It's going on all summer. And isn't that gorgeous? Oh my goodness. Anyways, Festival of Finishing. We are dusting off the old whips. We are getting them out. And it's a craft along. So any craft counts. Anything that has been lingering in your closet that you want to pull out and finish, pull them out, post them on Instagram when they're done, and hashtag with Festival of Finishing. Faye is donating €1 for every finished object to Knit for Peace. And my small business, Wedge Tote, is also going to match that donation up to $100 Canadian. So post those finished objects and make sure you join the group, Festival of Finishing. I'll put some more information in the show notes on my blog. Okay, so here's mine. Are you ready? I love this so much. It's almost done. Oh my goodness. I showed this one on the Fiber Friends podcast, but I wasn't nearly as close to being finished as I am now. There, look at that. Oh my goodness. Oh, I even left my needle in there. You can see. I finished that last big circle. I just have to finish filling it in, and then I just have the bottom corner, and then it's done. Done, done, done. I think I started this in 2012, 2011, 2000. I don't know. I don't remember. But anyways, it's almost done. So I am going to get this finished up and enter that in the Festival of Finishing because I really want this up on my wall. And I want it completed and done. So that's almost done. So not a lot of time spent on that one because I've talked about that in numerous different places. And if you've watched Fiber Friends or if you follow me on Instagram, then you've already seen it quite a bit. So just briefly, again, I am using another HDF discontinued silk. This is Marc des Cercles, which to me matches pretty closely the color that they used originally in the picture, don't you think? So, what do you think? Think that was done on purpose? Perhaps. Anyway, I bought enough at the time to do the whole design. Back then, it was very inexpensive to buy a skein of silk, so I loaded up, and because I knew her directions say right on them. Where is it? Because I always thought this was quite funny. You'll need enough to make 19,968 little X's. Point of reference. Pick a nice color. This comes out to 9 8.7 yard skeins. Pick a nice color, which I think is wise advice. So I have enough to finish. And I'm hoping I have enough left over to do something else small. We'll see. Isn't it pretty? Love it. Just a really light variegation. and lovely silk. It's really a shame that she doesn't sell it anymore, because I'd still be buying it. I like Dinky Dyes. Dinky Dyes is another really nice silk. I've used that quite a bit. I enjoy using that as well. All right. Next. Am I moving too fast? Too slow? Let me know. I have another Little House Needleworks design. These are the ABC sampler houses. Oop, upside down. There. And I have not done a lot of progress on this since I posted a picture on Instagram maybe a month ago. But I've brought it up here with me to the cottage because I fully intend to finish D and E. I like to say that's Dolores and Edward who live there. And then I have F, G, and H ready to go. So that's the plan. But they're so sweet. I really like these. I love stitching houses. I don't know what it is. It's a bit weird, isn't it, to stitch a little house, but I guess it is sampler-like, and there's something very satisfying about it, building your own little neighborhood. They're very sweet. I like the pumpkins in this first one here. I am using the called for threads in this one because I like the colors. This is a different, I use this in the Kay's frame, the Kay's lap frame, and I can't remember the name of the brand name of the thing, and frankly I don't really love them all that much because I find they leave a line on the fabric if you leave the fabric longer than an hour rolled up in it. But it's handy clamp. I think that's what it is. I think it's called handy clamp, but it means I don't have to sew the fabric to the bar, which I like because sometimes I'm lazy. So there you go. My neighborhood. I'm sure everybody knows Vonna, and when this came out, Vonna had her neighborhood built lickety split, and the people in my neighborhood were a little jealous. They said, how come we got the lazy stitcher who can't get her act in gear and get these houses built? So anyways, that's on the docket next, doing F, G, and H. Okay, I think, oh yeah, right. I have one more big one that I've brought up here with me. This is an old one that I have not barely done a lot on. This is Quaker Diamonds. Oh, look at that. Isn't it gorgeous? Oh my goodness. I don't know why I haven't just gone after this and finished it, because this I really want on my wall. And I think I want it here at the cottage. I love it. It's just beautiful. Colors are gorgeous. And again, I am using HDF silks. Because again, this is something I kitted up like 5 or 6 years ago, and I bought all the threads, and it's still in my stash pile. But at least I started it, and I know where all my threads are. I haven't lost them or anything like that. I'm fairly good about knowing where things are. So there you go. Look. Isn't it pretty? Oh my goodness. Love it. My needle minder, Kelmscott Designs. She's a genius. All of her things are so beautiful. Paula Sibbald Moorish. Her needle minders, her scissors, her thread keeps, they are all just perfectly designed, so useful, and just lovely. A lovely little accessory to your stitching stash. Love it. Yeah, I need to get on this one. I need more time. I think that's what it comes down to. Need more time. Drink more coffee and stitch faster. So there you go. That's Quaker Diamonds. And that was the last thing that I had to show that I'm really, that I had intended really to work on while I'm up here, as well as, you know, my knitting and sewing and all of that other stuff. The last thing I wanted to show you, as far as from my stash pile, and this is something a little embarrassing. So, fair warning, this is this project. This was a design that was done. It's a ink circles design. Tracy Horner designed it specifically for my needle workshop, Thread and Eye, and it's called the Thread and Eye Mandela, and it's a beautiful design. This is not the fault of the designer. Oh, it's part of the cottage life. We have flies occasionally inside, so there you go. Everybody does, right? The Thread and Eye Mandela, and it is a beautiful design. My fault that this has sat sort of in timeout for the last 3 years, because I've worked really hard at finishing the, let's see if I can show the outside picture. I did all of the outlining. Here's the design. I did all of the black outlining, the entire thing. I chose my color. You choose 4 color groups, 3 shades of each color family, and so I did all of the outlining, and then I had my colors, and I started stitching. I started filling in, and yeah. I was stitching away, and all of a sudden I thought, maybe that's not the greatest place to stitch a pink color family, because perhaps this is turning the Thread and Eye Mandela into something slightly X-rated. You know, that's not really what I was going for. So it was dubbed another name, and I was quite upset because I put so much work into it, and then I couldn't look at it anymore because I thought, this is ridiculous. You know, let me just say that not only was the pink in the middle for those particular appendages, but we also had pink down in here. So we had both members of human anatomy represented in vivid pink. So my job is to rip out the pink and replace it. I've decided to go with, now similar to my ink circles, I chose some mustardy colors. So I've got just some DMC. Honestly, I don't even, we'll see. We'll see if I can bring myself to do it. I don't know, maybe. Yeah, we all had a good laugh at it at the time. A really good laugh. Ha ha. Anyway, so that's the end of that. It has sat in timeout for a very long time. Okay, so that is the end of the whips that I had to show you for today, and that's probably all I had to show you for stitching. Oh, I meant to say this at the beginning of the podcast. I know I mentioned that I have a shop, Evertotes. I do intend to do a shop update at the end of each of these stitching podcasts, which is the same thing that we do on the Fiber Friends podcast. And I have to, normally Adrienne edits the other videos, so I have to learn how to do the editing myself for this. And I'm hoping that right here or here, I don't know, somewhere, I'll put that it's shop update time. And if you just came for the stitching and you've had enough and you don't care about the rest of it, now's the time. You can just turn it off, and I'll see you next week. So if you are still interested in sticking around, I'll tell you a little bit more about my shop. I and my sister-in-law, Kathy, we run an Etsy shop called Evertotes. The business is Evertote. Yeah, actually, sorry, the Etsy one is Evertote. Our Instagram is at Evertotes because somebody took Evertote. I don't know, but they're not even using it. So I had to put an S on the end. But the business itself is Evertote. And you can also find us by just typing in www.evertote.com, and that will take you directly to the site where you can see what we make. We sell bags. We sell knitting bags and stitching bags and all kinds of different, size bags. So the ones I wanted to show you today, anyways, is the stitching bag that we have that will hold an 8-inch square Q-snap. So this is it. That's the size of it. I love this one. I'm tempted to just keep this one myself. So you can see, here's my 8-inch Q-snap there. And you can see there's enough room for your pattern. There's enough room for your threads. All fully lined with a fun contrasting color. Sometimes I use a white lining. We use a white lining. Kathy's not here right now, so I'm talking for both of us. But we like to try and put a fun lining in if we can. And we line them with a cotton bat so that they are squishy and lots of protection there for your project. So we don't tend to use the interfacing on our bags. I'd say 95% of the time we don't use interfacing. We use the cotton bat, or sometimes we'll use a cotton flannel as well on the inside. So they are fun to make. We've been doing this since January. We've been sewing for a lot longer than that. Kathy, much longer than me, has been sewing, and she taught me a lot of what I know. So we love to sew together, and we're pretty good friends. She's a pretty great sister-in-law. So there's that. Sometimes there will also be a matching notions tote that goes with the bag. And if you're looking at a bag and you think you'd like a matching notions tote, let me know, because lots of times I have enough fabric and I can just zip one up if you're interested. If not, I do sell them separately. Sometimes I'll make a bag and I'll put it in a kit and we'll sell them together. But most of the time we sell them separately. So the other style of bag that we make, if you're a knitter, we make wedge bags for knitting projects. This is we're Canadian. I love this fabric. We make kit bags. So this is our sock project size. So lots of room for a caked up skein of yarn and your project. I would even say a 1 skein shawl would fit in this size. This is the small wedge tote. We also make a drawstring bag, and I don't have one here with me right now. We make a drawstring bag that's similar size, except of course the drawstring, because it comes here, the depth is a little less, but approximately the same size. So there's that one. That's the small size, and then there is the medium size. This is a medium size. So these are boxed on the bottom, and there's no reason why these wouldn't hold stitching projects as well. I often throw anything in it that I have that needs a home. So these, when I'm knitting and I'm using these, I like to fold them down, and then the zip doesn't get in the way, and your yarn and your project or your stitching, everything is just tucked away neatly in there, and you can stitch in the car, on the plane, wherever, and it keeps it neat and tidy. We love making these bags. Anyway, evertote.com. So there you go. So thank you for watching today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you will come back. If you enjoyed it, please hit the subscribe button and the like. And if you have any questions, leave me a comment underneath this episode. I love getting comments. I'll always try and answer as quick as I can. And check out my blog, and I'll see you next time. Happy stitching. Bye.